Welcome to the deep dive.
Mm.
Okay, imagine this for a second. What if a country tries to, fix poverty, but the way they do it actually makes things worse, especially for families?
Yeah, it sounds like a really painful paradox, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
But what if the answer isn't just about, social programs in the traditional sense, but about unlocking this really powerful engine for the whole national economy? There's actually a city in Japan that seems to be proving this out.
It's a fascinating and honestly pretty sobering idea. Our focus today is Japan, which, as you know, has been dealing with, decades of economic stagnation.
Right.
And we're looking at this analysis, investing in the many. It makes a really compelling case that the basic problem isn't just standard economics, but something they call a deeply dysfunctional and economically irrational system for redistributing wealth. That's at the core of their issues, according to this report.
So our mission for you today is to really unpack why this system is seen as failing. How does it actually hold back spending, domestic demand? And here's the kicker, the really crucial insight.
Why putting resources into the hands of lower-income households isn't just a social cost. The argument here is that it's actually the most powerful kind of economic stimulus you can get. It drives growth led by consumption. So this deep dive should give you a clear way into understanding this, pretty complex issue and its, frankly, surprising implications.
Okay, so to really get why this system is supposedly so backwards, we need to start with a core economic idea. It's the fiscal multiplier effect, and what economists call the marginal propensity to consume, MPC for short.
Okay, the fiscal multiplier. So that tells us how much bang for your buck you get from government stimulus, right? Like 1 yen goes in, how much total economic output comes out, that ripple effect.
Exactly. And the key thing determining how big that ripple is, that's the MPC.
Right.
Which is really just the portion, the fraction of each extra yen someone gets that they actually go out and spend.
Got it.
And the math, it really shows this ripple effect pretty powerfully. Let's say, for instance, a household has an MPC of like 0.8. So they spend 80% of any new money coming in.
Okay. Then you get this really strong chain reaction. Picture the government giving someone 1,000. That person spends 800. That 800 becomes income for someone else.
Right, who then spends their 80%.
Exactly. So they spend 640, and it just keeps going down the line like that.
So what does that whole cascade add up to? That sounds like it could get big.
It does. In that specific example, the initial 1,000 payment ends up generating 5,000 in total economic activity.
Wow.
That's a multiplier of 5. So yeah, it's pretty amazing how one targeted payment can snowball into so much more activity.
Okay, so that's the principle. But what's often missed?
Well, what often gets overlooked, especially when making national policy, is that this MPC thing, it's not the same for everyone. It actually varies quite dramatically depending on how much income and wealth people have.
Ah, okay. So it matters who gets the money.
Absolutely. Think about low-income households. They often face, really tight liquidity constraints. If you've ever been watching the bank account closely before payday, you get it. Any extra money they get, it's almost always used right away for daily needs, maybe a purchase they had to put off. So they have a very high MPC.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense. They need it, they spend it. What about higher income folks?
Well, for them, the basic needs are usually covered. They often have savings built up. So if they get extra income, they're much more likely to, say, save it or invest it rather than spend it immediately on consumption.
Which means their MPC is lower.
Significantly lower, yeah. And the data from Japan itself, from the government, the Bank of Japan, it really hammers this home. If you look at the lowest income groups, working households, folks with less than 2 million annual income, the poorest elderly, their MPC is around 40%.
Okay.
Which gives you a multiplier of about 1.67.
Right.
But then you look at the highest income elderly households, their MPC drops to maybe 10%.
Only 10%. Wow.
So their multiplier is just 1.11. Big difference.
So let's put some numbers on that impact then. If the government spends, say, $1 trillion on a package for the lowest income group, that generates $1.67 trillion in economic activity, using that 1.67 multiplier.
Right.
But if they gave that same $1 trillion as like a tax break, mostly benefiting the highest income group.
With their lower multiplier.
Yeah, with the 1.33 multiplier for the highest working households, or even less for the elderly. It only generates, 1.33 trillion?
Exactly, or even less, depending on the exact group. But using that 1.33 figure for the high-income working group, that's a difference of $340 billion in economic impact.
From the exact same government spending. just targeted differently.
Precisely. That's a huge difference for the national economy.
So this really changes how you ought to look at certain policies, doesn't it?
It completely reframes it. Things like child allowances or direct support for working poor families, they shouldn't just be seen as, welfare costs.
Right.
They're actually, from this perspective, incredibly efficient economic stimulus packages.
And the flip side.
The flip side is that policies that mainly benefit the wealthy, like maybe certain tax cuts, from a purely macroeconomic stimulus viewpoint, they're
Right.
they're quite inefficient.
Okay, that principle is really clear now. High MPC means high multiplier, low MPC means low multiplier. So let's dig into Japan's system itself.
Yeah.
How does it actually break down in these surprising ways? The report talks about this reverse phenomenon
Yeah.
where the poor can actually end up poorer after the government steps in with taxes and benefits. That just sounds wrong.
It's deeply counterintuitive, isn't it? And the analysis points to three main distortions causing this. First up is a Social Security system that's actually regressive.
Regressive. How so? I thought Social Security was meant to help.
Well, unlike income tax, which usually takes a bigger percentage from higher earners, it's progressive Japan's social insurance system, that's health, pensions, elder care. It's often structured differently. Premiums can be like a flat percentage of income for many people without enough breaks or exemptions for those earning very little.
So the burden falls harder on low-income workers, percentage-wise.
A much larger share of their earnings goes into the system, yeah.
And is this connected to those annual income walls, the Nenshu no Kabe that people talk about?
Exactly. That's a huge part of this distortion. The report gives this example. A dependent spouse, usually a woman working part-time, if she earns just over $1.3 million a year, that's around $10,000 US.
Okay.
She suddenly loses her husband's social insurance coverage. She has to start paying her own premiums, which can be substantial.
So she works a bit more, earns a bit more, and the family's net income drops.
Drops significantly, yeah. Potentially by hundreds of thousands of yen. It's a massive disincentive to earn more. How is that supposed to help people climb out of poverty?
It doesn't make any sense. It actively discourages work past a certain point.
It's a prime example of that reverse effect. The system itself can actually make things worse for the very people needing help.
Okay, that's distortion number one. What's the second?
The second is a tax system that's become, weakened and unfair over time. The report argues that since the 90s, Japan's income tax system has been deliberately made less redistributive.
How?
Through tax cuts that disproportionately benefited high earners and corporations. The result is that Japan now has one of the weakest redistribution effects through its tax system among all the major developed economies, the OECD countries.
Wow. And is there a specific mechanism here, like the income walls for Social Security?
There is. It's often called the 100 million yen wall, or Ichiyokuen no Kabe.
100 million yen.
Yeah.
That's what, about 750,000 US?
Roughly, yeah. And here's the weird part. An individual's effective overall tax rate, the actual percentage of their total income they pay in tax, it goes up as their income rises, but only up to that 100 million mark.
Wait, it goes up?
And then it starts to fall.
The more you earn above that, the lower your overall tax rate gets. How is that possible?
It's because of how different types of income are taxed. The super wealthy in Japan, they don't get most of their income from salaries, right?
All right, they get it from investments, capital gains, dividends.
Exactly. And that financial income, it's taxed separately from salary income. And it's taxed at a low, flat rate, only around 20%. Meanwhile, salary income is taxed progressively, going up to 45% at the top end.
So the system is basically set up to favor income from wealth over income from work.
That's the argument. It heavily favors wealth, which massively reduces the tax system's ability to redistribute and, fund the kind of social support we've been talking about.
That's a huge structural flaw.
Right.
Okay, so we have a regressive Social Security system and a tax system that favors the very wealthy. What's the third distortion?
The third one is that the whole system is profoundly skewed by generation, not by actual need.
Generation, not need. What does that mean?
The data, according to the report, is really stark. Japan's redistribution system isn't mainly transferring money from the rich to the poor within society overall.
Okay.
Instead, it's overwhelmingly a massive transfer from the working generation to the elderly generation.
So it's mostly about pensions.
Almost entirely explained by pension payments, yeah. When you look at efforts to reduce inequality within an age group, like trying to help poor families who are still in their working years, those efforts are tiny by comparison. Sometimes the net effect is even regressive within that group.
So young people and kids are kind of stuck.
They're described as the tragic victims of this structure, essentially. Young workers are paying more and more into social insurance.
Right.
But the benefits specifically targeted at families, like child allowances, they're really small compared to other countries. The system ends up taking money from younger, often struggling families to support the elderly population.
And this directly leads to higher child poverty after the government intervenes.
That's what the analysis shows, yes. The poverty rate for households with children actually gets worse after taxes and transfers are accounted for. It functions, in effect, like an income support program just for the elderly, and it's paid for by the young.
Wow. That paints a really tough picture. But, okay, it's crucial to understand these mechanics if we're going to look at solutions.
And it's important to see why this dysfunctional system sticks around. It's not just bad math. There's a powerful feedback loop involving politics, corporate interests, and even cultural attitudes.
Right, the report brings up this idea of silver democracy. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it points to Japan's demographics. It's a super-aged society, meaning the elderly make up a huge chunk of the population, and crucially, they vote in very high numbers.
So they have a lot of political clout.
Immense clout. Politicians, naturally, tend to prioritize their interests. That means protecting benefits for the elderly, often by shifting the costs like rising social insurance premiums onto the younger generations who are, less numerous and maybe less politically organized.
And there are powerful lobby groups reinforcing this.
Absolutely. Groups like medical associations, for example, have a strong interest in maintaining high levels of spending on healthcare for the elderly. It makes reform incredibly difficult to push through politically.
And how do corporations fit into this loop?
Well, think about it from a company's perspective. Their share of social insurance premiums, the part they pay for their employees, is a major labor cost, and it's been rising.
Okay.
So to keep those costs down, what do? They try to hold down wages. And they increasingly rely on non-regular workers, part-timers, contract workers.
Who often aren't covered by the same mandatory social insurance rules.
Exactly, or covered to a lesser extent. So it creates this kind of vicious cycle. The burden of the Social Security system on working people incentivizes companies to create more low-wage, insecure jobs.
Which then increases the number of working poor who actually need more social support. It feeds itself.
It really does. And then layered on top of all these structural things is this cultural element, the idea of jiko sikinen.
Self-responsibility.
Right. There's this pervasive belief, the report argues, that frames big systemic problems, poverty, unemployment, even things like student debt, as primarily the result of individual failings, like laziness or just making bad choices.
And that undermines support for helping people.
It erodes social solidarity, yeah. It makes it harder to build political will for strong redistribution policies because it can foster resentment towards people who are seen as, undeserving of help. It blames the victim, essentially.
Okay, so you've painted a picture of a system that's economically inefficient, politically gridlocked, and kind of culturally resistant to change. It sounds pretty bleak at the national level.
It can seem that way, but this is where we get to pivot to something genuinely hopeful.
Yes.
There's this amazing real-world example, a social experiment, really, in Akashi City in Hyogo Prefecture. It shows that a different path is actually possible.
Akashi City. What do they do differently?
Under their former mayor, Fusaho Izumi, they completely reframed the discussion. They basically said, investing in children isn't a cost to be minimized, it's a direct economic strategy.
Connecting it back to that multiplier effect we talked about earlier.
Precisely. Akashi is like a living laboratory for the high multiplier strategy. They rolled out this package of policies they called the 5 Frees.
Okay, what were they?
They were all aimed squarely at young families, the people with the highest MPC, remember?
Right.
So, number 1, free medical care for all kids up to age 18. 2, free daycare, starting from the second child. 3, free school lunches in junior high. 4, free entry to public play areas and facilities. And 5, even free diaper delivery for babies.
Wow, that's comprehensive. Free diapers.
Yeah. The logic was super simple, super direct. Let's increase the actual disposable income of families who we know are going to spend that extra money right here, locally.
And did it work? What were the results?
The results were, frankly, spectacular. They really validated the whole approach.
Okay, give us the highlights.
Akashi's population. It increased for 10 years straight, while many other Japanese cities were shrinking.
10 years. That's significant.
Huge. Their birth rate hit 1.7. That's way above the national average in Japan.
Wow. Okay. What about the city's finances? Did all this free stuff bankrupt them?
That's the amazing part. No, city tax revenues actually went up.
Increased.
More people, more economic activity. Land prices went up for 7 years in a row. Commercial activity just boomed. The number of new businesses opening doubled. Visitor traffic to the city jumped 70%.
That's incredible. Sounds like a total revitalization.
It really does. And here's the crucial point, the one that busts a common myth.
Okay.
That boom in tax revenue, it actually allowed Akashi City to increase its spending on services for the elderly, too.
So it wasn't a trade-off. They didn't have to choose between kids and seniors.
Exactly. It completely debunks that idea that supporting children has to come at the expense of the elderly. The Akashi model shows that investing in those high multiplier households, families with kids, creates this virtuous cycle of growth that ends up benefiting everyone across all generations.
That's such a powerful counter-narrative. It shifts the whole perspective from seeing families as a cost to seeing them as the key to future prosperity.
It really does.
Yeah.
So tying this all together, what does it mean for Japan as a whole? The evidence laid out in Investing in the Many seems pretty clear. Japan looks like it's stuck in this low growth, low fairness situation because its redistribution system is, well, economically irrational, socially damaging, and politically stuck in gridlock.
So the way forward, according to this analysis, is to fundamentally change that system, to move towards what they call a high multiplier, high fairness model.
Right. And they propose a pretty comprehensive policy package to get there, organized around 3 main pillars.
Okay, pillar 1.
Pillar 1 is all about redesigning Social Security, making it work for fairness and for growth.
How?
2 key actions here. First, make social insurance progressive. That means bringing in income-based exemptions, maybe progressive premium rates like income tax has, and crucially, get rid of those annual income walls, the nenshu no kabe, that trap people, especially women, in low-wage part-time work.
Right, stop penalizing people for earning a bit more.
Exactly. Second action under this pillar, rebalance spending towards families. Set a clear national goal to boost spending on family-related benefits, child allowances, parental leave support, affordable childcare, up to at least the average level you see in other developed OECD countries.
Okay, so fix Social Security, invest more in families. What's pillar 2?
Pillar 2 tackles the tax system. It's about restoring its power to redistribute fairly.
Which means going after that 100 million yen wall.
That's the main target, yes. Action 1 is to end the special treatment for financial income. Get rid of that separate, low, flat tax rate on capital gains and dividends. The idea is to tax all income comprehensively, based on how much you make, and progressively.
So treat income from wealth the same as income from work.
That's the principle. And doing that, it also provides a stable source of funding for the reforms in Pillar 1, the Social Security changes.
Makes sense. Any other actions under the tax pillar?
Yes. They also propose introducing a refundable tax credit, something like a benefit integrated tax credit. It's basically a way to give direct cash support to low-income working families really efficiently through the tax system.
Okay. And the final pillar, number 3.
Pillar 3 is simple. Invest directly in the high multiplier people.
The ones who will spend the money and boost the economy.
Exactly. So action 1 here is expand the child allowance. Make it universal, get rid of the income caps that phase it out for some families, extend it so it covers kids up to age 18, and increase the actual payment amount. Basically, take the lessons from Akashi City nationwide.
Use it as the powerful economic stimulus it proved to be there.
Right. And the final action under Pillar 3, deal with the burden of student debt.
Ah, yes. That affects a lot of young people.
Hugely. The proposal is to shift Japan's system away from being so reliant on loans and towards more grant-based aid for higher education. And for people who already have loans, expand the options for income-contingent repayments, so payments are tied to what they can actually afford.
The thinking being that frees up young graduates to spend, start families, maybe start businesses.
Precisely. Unleash their economic potential instead of having them weighed down by debt right at the start of their careers.
Okay, so that's quite a comprehensive agenda. Fix Social Security, fix the tax system, invest directly in families and young people. It's ambitious.
It definitely won't be easy to implement, politically or otherwise, no question. But the argument in the report is pretty stark. The alternative, just continuing with the current system, is basically choosing managed decline.
So the choice isn't really between fairness and growth.
No, the report argues they go together. The choice is between this kind of scientifically backed model that aims for shared prosperity versus sticking with a system that's demonstrably failing on both fronts.
when you boil it all down, what's the single biggest takeaway here?
For me, it's this really profound idea. Investing in low-income families, investing in young people. It's not just, the nice or right thing to do socially. It's actually a powerful evidence-backed strategy for driving national economic growth.
Right. It flips the script on social spending. It's economic stimulus.
And it creates that virtuous cycle we saw in Akashi City. More spending leads to more growth, which leads to more tax revenue, which can then benefit all generations.
It really does make you rethink things.
Which leads to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. If this evidence from Japan, and especially the Akashi model, is so compelling, what other really deeply ingrained ideas we have about economic policy, about social spending, what else might be completely wrong? How might applying this high multiplier lens, thinking about where money actually goes and what impact it has, how might that fundamentally change how we try to build, more vibrant, more hopeful societies wherever we are in the world?
That's a really powerful question to leave us with. What assumptions are we working under that might need a serious reevaluation? Lots to think about there.